Sit with Lexi V.
Well, it is not but the recruiter cousin, famous on LinkedIn. How are you, sis?
I'm doing good. I can't complain. How are you?
Before we get started on your very important lesson, I want to ask you, where are your people from?
I'm originally from Camden, New Jersey.
Okay.
Ironically, it's interesting because my mom's side is from New Jersey. My dad's side is from like the Philadelphia area. So still the same. The only thing that separates us is the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we go to the roots part, my dad's side is from South Carolina. And my mom's side is actually from North Carolina. So when I moved to North Carolina, I didn't realize that I was coming back to a root, a maternal root of some sort. And so I didn't learn until later in life that I was coming back to where my grandparents were, close to where my great-grandparents were from. And so now I live in North Carolina, but originally from Camden, New Jersey.
So you have developed, curated, I love the word curated, I would probably say curated, this phenomenal and very powerful brand on LinkedIn, really encouraging people to follow their corporate dreams. And it's one of the many things that I love about you is that you are consistently encouraging people through truth, through honesty, and through facts, that they can do anything they want to do. And even though it's really, really hard sometimes, because life is, y'all, earth is ghetto. Life is ghetto. And it can be hard. You always have Chenae, whether you know her personally or just know her through these social media networks, telling you that you can do it. So I want to ask you, what made you want to do that in the first place?
So let me add one more thing. It's the transparency part and it's the truth part, but it's also a level of vulnerability.
Yes.
So while I have this big brand across social media networks, I am not shy about sharing my vulnerable moments. I'll share the fact that my husband and I are going through a fertility journey. I've shared that I was a candidate for 4 years after I graduated law school. I've shared that I did not pass the bar after taking it 3 different times. I've shared a multitude of things about myself that makes me human. And I think that's the part that as professionals we forget. That it's okay to share the human parts of us. And a lot of times that's how we advance in our careers, because we get to network and we get to learn the people part of the professional. And so what made me want to do it, to be quite honest, was I am a spoken word artist and motivational speaker first. And so before I became a recruiter, and I'm also spiritual, so before I became a recruiter, I asked God for permission to be a recruiter because I wanted to inspire in a different way. And the idea behind that was, if you allow me to be a recruiter, I will never forget what it felt like to be a candidate. And so that's my motto throughout my life, which is why I am such a hard hitter when it comes to the candidate and hiring manager experience. So just to kind of like fast forward, what really made me tackle and go full-fledged recruiter cousin was I started to see the trend of ghosting, and it's hard to get in contact with a recruiter. And I don't know how to talk to a recruiter when I do get in contact with them. I don't know what to say. And I even started getting messages of just all of the messages that went across, like around in a circle, instead of telling me what your ask is.
Right.
And so I wanted to start to teach people on how to approach the job search just across the board from a very general perspective. And then I started to get specific about, this is how you talk to a hiring manager. This is how you talk to a recruiter, because I wasn't taught that. And I didn't get taught that until I was in the position to be a recruiter by my now mentor, Danita. She taught me, this is what recruiters are looking for. This is what hiring managers are looking for. And she put me in positions where I was able to sit in meetings to understand the differences in tone. And when people get upset, this is what they do with their bodies. And so it made me pay attention. And so I wanted to start to teach people how to approach a thing or a person and it not be so difficult. This don't have to be as difficult as we're making it. And if we have someone to teach us how to do it, I think the greater public would be grateful for the lesson. And so what honestly made me do it was I didn't see people doing exactly what I do now. And I wanted to also add the cousin on it because I wanted people to feel like family when they're talking to me.
Mhm.
Trying to approach a recruiter is intimidating.
Yeah.
Especially when it's online, it's professional, and you do not know this person from Adam. And so I was like, how can I lessen the anxiety of a person? Write job seeker templates. Write a script for people so that they understand how to actually speak to someone. And you would be amazed of how many DMs that I've gotten that says stuff like, Chenae, the only reason why I haven't committed suicide is because I have kids and I can't find a job. Or the only reason I'm sleeping on my friend's couch or I'm about to be evicted. And so when I get stuff like that, it's how can I stand at the gap to help from a personal perspective, not necessarily like take away from my own life, right? But from a personal perspective, how can I show up as a human? And then in conjunction with that so that they could also see the professional.
I just want to say it here. You're the only person at the company that we both work at that can touch my roles. I'm like, so here is my job requisition, and you need to call Chenae. I always
That's hilarious.
know I like what I like, and I do not like what I do not like. And I do not have a lot of time for BS. So I always tell folks, like, when I meet people I'm just like, oh, this is a vibe. I'm a return customer. So giving leadership that feedback. They did come back and say, but that's not her job to do all of that. And my response was so.
You know what's interesting? The reason why I recruit the way I do, and for those of you who have not picked up on it, Lexi was one of my hiring managers in my actual job.
Yeah, I was.
The reason why I recruit the way that I do is I have to come to a level of compromise with all of you as hiring leaders. And I have to get to know you all as people so I understand what makes you tick, right? If I understand what makes you tick and I understand what you like, I'll understand the type of candidate you can actually work with and who wouldn't have an issue with reporting to you. Who's putting on the mask during the recruiting process versus who's being an actual person and they're going to be a good fit for the role. And so I have to take time and space to have conversations with all of you outside of the day-to-day. So I'll like ask how y'all dogs are doing, or like if I just happen to have you all's number, I'll text you just randomly and see how you're doing, just to like break down the wall of work and just get to know you all as people. I'm very human-centered. And so if we can be human-centered just for a second, then it's much easier to do our jobs.
So speaking of keeping humans in the center, the lesson that we really need to dive in today, you call it emotional intelligence. I actually don't think it's emotional intelligence. I think it's how to respond to BS in the workplace. I always tell people that it's really hard to get a job, especially these days. I think it's also really hard to transition into the tech industry. I was very fortunate that I came in the tech industry as a new college grad a very, very long time ago. And that's a blessing to come in as a new college grad through a new college grad program and learn. But when I came into the corporate space, what no one prepared me for was that a good 75% of my career trajectory had nothing to do with if I was good enough, but had to do with networking and had to do with relationship building and also had to do with how do I respond to BS, okay? And as a dark-skinned Black girl at 22, again, a long time ago, from St. Louis, Missouri, who comes from both sets of parents coming from the South, I wasn't raised to navigate BS in a corporate way. And so I did it wrong for a long time. And I thank God and Harriet Tubman's ghost that I had mentors and people who loved on me and said, okay, Lexi, so instead of attacking with the heart, like you just took your arrow and you were like, boom, 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 right? There's a more strategic way to let people know that you are not the one and get what you want. So, question for you. When did you start realizing in your corporate mobility that there are people out here who are trying to push buttons disrespectfully just to get a rise out of you?
And I'll be fully transparent, when I was reported, when it was the moment I was reported that for some reason, I was taken aback by it. And I remember the day I was told that I was reported. I remember having like darn near a panic attack, because if the first time you hear that you're reported, the first thing you think of was, oh my gosh, am I going to lose my job?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you also think, well, what did I do wrong? And so those were my two questions. And so I had to have a series of conversations to calm me down. And I even took that following week off, because I had never, I was just like, oh, it just, I couldn't understand it. And I was reported because I had put something on LinkedIn, and whoever saw my post took it to our company. And the post was just after everyone was laid off in January 2023, the post was just, hey, me and 15 other career coaches, resume writers, and recruiters, we all want to get together. We want to pick 5 random people, and we want to just review resumes for free. Within 48 hours, 15 volunteers turned into 95 volunteers of people who just was flooding my inbox with, I love this initiative. I love the community aspect of this. I want to volunteer. How can I pick 5 people to review their resumes? And I actually ended up finding out that people who got their resumes reviewed actually ended up getting jobs after they got their resume reviews from their volunteer. And so someone took that and screenshot it, took it to employee relations, said that I was reviewing resumes at the advantage of someone getting hired at our company. And I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that someone would take something so pure that I came up with to just tarnish that. And I was taken aback, because I do so much for the community, even on my personal time. And if anything, I think my heart was broken. My feelings were hurt. And so I had to navigate that, and I had to understand that not everyone is meant for your good, and not everyone wants you to do good.
Mm-hmm.
As much as people present that they support you and all of the things, I also learned the hard way that there is a such thing called envy. And there is a such thing that if you're doing something that is great for the community, or something that you're called to do, and whoever the greater community is, just does not agree with it, and because they didn't think of it first, I've learned that the hard way is that you'll find people that want to see you fail. And so my response to that was the wrong way the first time. I ain't gonna lie, I was very much a person out. I was very much I'm going to tell this person or these people, whoever it is, about themselves, because that's how I was raised. I was someone who, from Camden, New Jersey, when your mom and your dad are from Camden and Philly, and that up top mentality is who the F you talking to, no matter who I'm talking to, I'm going to tell you how I feel. It can be janitor to the CEO. It could be mom to friend. I was taught and raised that if you feel like you're being wronged, speak up for yourself. And so my mentality is, if I do that with my own mother, everyone who comes after her gets it. Now, of course, respectfully to my mom, but very much everybody who comes after her will get the Chenae speak up. And so I had to learn from that. I had to learn, Chenae, no one is going to hear you when you're yelling and you're cursing. Even if you're right, you can be dead center correct, and no one is going to hear the emotional side of you, because all they're going to hear is the emotion and not the message. They're going to hear the delivery and not the message. They're going to hear the words and not the actual message. And so so that was the first time. And then I had to grow from that, and I had to figure out, which the growing pain was real. And I had to figure out, how do you balance when people want to see you fail with you actually not failing?
I had to learn the lesson. I was working at Airbnb, and there was a leader. Something happened at work, and there was a leader who happened to be a white man, and he was in the room when it happened. And something happened, and I didn't say anything to the person that basically professionally cuss me out in a room for no reason because I was just so taken aback. And I will never forget these words. And shout out to the man who said them because he knows exactly who he is. Everyone left the room and he stayed behind and he looked at me and he was like, never bring a knife to a gunfight. And I said, excuse me, are you giving me permission to go off? And he looked at me and he was like, strategically, but yes. And he just walked away. And this is a very long time ago. And I took that advice and then I said, okay, I need to now refocus my attention on not, in my Obama voice, when they go low, we go high, but how in which I'm going to strategically petty win this fight. And I will never forget that. And I always tell people, even in interviews, I'm like, I will never bring a knife to a gunfight. I will bring a nuclear bomb. Now, you may not feel it then, but you go feel it later, and you're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome from my ancestors. You're welcome from my mama. You're welcome from my kid. You're welcome from my goldfish. You are welcome because one of my values, I'm sure you know, is that it's not about the work. It's about how we do it. So how did you start learning and doing that journey of being strategic about making sure people knew who you were and they weren't going to disrespect you, but you were also going to get what you wanted out of the situation?
So first, my mom used to says, Chenae, you are hard to manage, whether that be personal and professional. You are hard to manage because you hold people accountable. She said you're hard to manage because your presence holds people accountable. And so she broke it down a little bit. She said, and she called me Pook. She said, Pook, this means that in your presence holding people accountable, you make people see the parts of them that they don't want to see. And there are many times when you don't necessarily have to be saying a word. They know they can't bullshit you. So, and they know that if they try, you're going to call them out on it. Because you're in the room, you're going to call bullshit. And so, so that journey for me, it started with accepting that I am hard to manage. I had to accept that. Now, to the right person, I am not hard to manage. Person meaning both professional and personal, right? So that could be friendship, that in the past was intimacy, just all up. I'm not hard to manage when it comes to the right connections and network. My progression in that journey continued with Danita. And I remember she told me one day, she said, Chenae, you ain't done nothing until you put your job on the line. And I never understood that until I put my job on the line. And she said, you're not making a difference and you're not making an impact until you've literally tossed up your job and said, I'm going to put my job on the line for what's right. And so when I didn't realize I started to do that. Like I wasn't doing it on purpose. It just kind of happened. And so I didn't realize that in doing something right or in doing something for positive impact says, going back to envy says that's wrong because I didn't think of it. And so my journey continued with Danita constantly talking me off ledges because I've had to be talked off many ledges. And then it continued with my husband. There have been times where I'm very much a fuck this shit person. And so there have been times when I'm like, I just don't want to do this anymore. And my husband is like, oh, I'm not letting you quit because if you quit, then you would never forgive yourself. And then it got to a point where I've had friends in my corner that had to remind me and awaken my spiritual side and remind me that if your faith says it is what it is, then why are you so shaken by a season? And so that journey has continued over the course of a few years with different connections in my network of people. And then it continues with me sitting with myself and asking, why did I even, going back to your very first question, what was the purpose of me doing Recruiter Cousin in the first place? Like what made you think that recruiter cousin wasn't going to come with some type of resistance. What made you think you were immune to that, Chenae? And so what made you think you were that special that it would not come with some type of resistance? And so I had to also sit with the old saying of, you must be doing something right if it's coming with this type of resistance. So that's been that journey. And I've had to very much surround myself with people like you with that iron sharpens iron type of mentality. And I've had to sit quiet and really sit with fully understanding what God wants me to do next. Whether it's create more templates, whether it's continue to do podcasts, whether it's whatever that is. People ask me all the time, what do I want to do with Recruiter Cousin? I learned a long time ago, I can have an idea, but the Lord has the final say. So whatever happens with my brand, the journey has been teaching me genuine maturity and emotional intelligence, because I'm very much an eye for an eye type of person.
Sometimes I think it's hard for people to see what's next in the midst of people disrespecting them or in the midst of inequality, because inequality in the corporate world specifically, because they have not sat down and said, what do you want? Right? I had a lot of mentors who really, like I said, y'all, Lexi being in her 20s was just a masterclass on just pure fantastic thugness.
I think we all were a masterclass in our 20s.
I miss her deeply. I do. I may have told a manager once in a meeting, like, God is God, I am not. Right? Like, I was just epic quotes. And I had a mentor who really helped me, and he would always tell me, what's your end goal? If you're going to fight strategically, what's your end goal? And right now, you're not fighting like you have an end goal. You're just fighting because this person looked crazy to you. And so I think sometimes it's hard for us all to navigate difficult work dynamics, or as my grandmother would say, people with no couth, right? When you don't know your end goal. So tell me about the moment when you started recognizing, verbalizing, and really affirming your end goal in corporate spaces.
This is going back to my fertility journey. Part of my end goal was, I said to my husband, I said, Terrence, so my first daughter's name is, when she gets here, when she is in my womb and in here, her name is Shanice. So he named her. So Chenae and Patrice, my mom's name is Patrice, put together, her name would be Shanice. So my end goal, part of my end goal was, I asked myself, I said, Chenae, what if Shanice says, Mom, when you had the chance to fight, did you? What if I told her no? I don't think I would be able to look her in the eye and say, no, your mom did not fight. So me going back to me being an eye for an eye person, growing up, I had a hard time with, not necessarily with authority, but if you are telling me to do something that you have not done, I don't think I need to listen to you. So in my mind, if you want me to live a certain type of way, but you're not living that way, why do I need to live that way when you're not living that way? I'm always been that way. And so for me, I've had this thought of, if Shanice asked me, why didn't I fight? And I'm trying to get her to fight and stand up for herself. Who am I to try to get her to fight and stand up for herself when I didn't, when I had the chance to? And so that has been part of my end goal. And then the other part has been to learn how to teach people how to stand up for themselves. Because we don't know how to really do it. And I think standing up for ourselves, it comes with, I'm going to stand up for myself in the moment, but not for the long term. And so part of that also comes with, I want to create training programs on teaching recruiters, especially new recruiters, about the importance of the candidate and hiring manager experience together, and how we are the true liaison between the candidate and the company. And in order for me to do that, I have to teach people how to be emotionally intelligent. And I have to teach people about policies and the law and all the things with compliance that we all have to follow regardless of the companies that we work for. So because that's my end goal, I can't stop in the middle of a season or the beginning of a season in my career or in life in general and go, fuck this shit. Never mind. Just because it may get a little difficult. And so it started with my unborn child hypothetically asking me, Mom, if you had to stand up for yourself, would you or did you? And I happened to say no. Plus, just learning also from Danita and her telling me different stories of how she's had to overcome, learning from people like you and learning from different people who've had to do this a little longer than me. And to fully understand that the eye for an eye is good, but it's not always great the way I want to say something in any setting. Is I have to learn how people receive information. And even though the information I have, I believe is great, how they are receiving it and perceiving it 2 different ways. And so I've had to learn my audience, and I've had to learn how to say, Chenae, just because you let this go for a moment, just because you did not have a response in the moment, does not mean you were tolerant. It doesn't mean that someone has one up on you. It doesn't mean you've allowed people to beat you, because I'm also competitive. So it doesn't mean that you've allowed people to beat you. It just means right now I can't say it the way that is going to be professionally correct or even if it's personally correct. I can't say it this way because I'm too emotional. So let me scale back for a second, rethink if I actually want to address this. And if I do, I do. If I don't, it'll be addressed in a different way. So that's been the journey, and that's been the end goal.
I also think that we have to honor that we are 2 dark-skinned Black women whose roots come from the enslavement of West Africans. And so what I like to remind people is that, like, I come from literal blood and stock, where when my ancestors disagreed, they could die.
Yep.
There was no say it the right way. If you said anything, you could die. And so whenever I get vulnerable at work, I tell people like, yo, I'm new at this whole fight strategically. My people don't fight strategically. My people do not navigate disrespect. And it really stems from, if you go back a few generations, I have ancestors that if they looked at the wrong person the wrong way, they could die.
We have that now with the cops.
100%. Right. So if that's the stock that I come from, I also come from a very militant stock. And at a certain point, you're like, okay, well, we just gonna have to box it out because I am tired. Right. And so it's also been this very interesting learning journey for me, and also healing journey with me and my ancestors. I always tell people my ancestors are around me and they're crazy. So honestly, F around and find out, because my people don't play about me. Okay.
Yeah.
Of having to navigate no longer being in fight or flight, but being awkwardly comfortable with this idea that I had a lot of people who shed blood so I could be awkwardly comfortable and have to figure out how I'm going to strategically dance this battle with this person for my own selfish endeavors, which small part can include you not telling my boss that I cussed you out. And by the way, shout out to my boss because he just knows.
I love him. I love him.
He knows my heart.
I absolutely shout out to him. We love him. Hands down. Absolutely.
But then also, like, what do I want out of the situation? And so twistedly, it's been uncomfortable and I hate it. I hate fighting strategically, but also very healing. But what do you think about that?
You know what's funny is, just to add to that, what's interesting is I've had to also tell myself in this F this shit mentality, I've had to tell myself, well, Chenae, what if Martin Luther King said that? What if Harriet Tubman said that? What if Mahatma Gandhi said that? What if all of the people who, whether they look like you or don't, what if they said that you would not be able to be in the spaces and speak in the spaces that you're in, even before you became a recruiter? You wouldn't have been able to be a spoken word artist and have, or it would have been a little bit more difficult to be a spoken word artist and write 3 books of poetry before you turn 30. And so the idea has been, I also come from a mom who is very much an F around, find out person. I come, child, like my mom is like my ride or die. My mom turns into a whole like something when it comes to her baby, and which I think every mom should. What I learned is I was raised by 3 women. So my mom, my aunt, and my grandma. So shout out to my Portia and my grandma, God rest her soul. Where we were very much super women. I watched them be single mothers and work multiple jobs. And even though my grandmother was married for 50 years, it is very possible to be married and be a single parent.
That is a separate episode, but we are
It's a separate episode. I get it.
Woo!
It's very possible to be an emotional single parent.
Yes. No, physical, emotional, and mental.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is I'm saying emotional because my grandfather was financially there.
Yes.
And lived in the same house and all of that, but my grandmother was the parent. And so so being raised by 3 women who had this superwoman complex, and now having a marriage of my own and living the soft girl life, it was new to me. And so now that I've had to navigate these spaces in corporate America where I can't say like, who would you just say? That's new to me because in the environment that I was raised in, whether it was in a majority white environment, which I had some of that when I was a child, but then also the hood environment, which I had some of that too. It like you got to be able to be on your toes. You got to be able to have a comeback, or people just gonna think they can take advantage of you because you didn't have a comeback the first time. So I had to fully disconnect from what I've been used to, but then I also have given myself grace in knowing that in having to unlearn a lot of things that you are so used to, you also have some trauma there that you've had to overcome as well. And so the grace says, Chenae, you have some trauma that you have to heal from. Give yourself that time and the space to heal. And if you need to step back from helping people and helping people navigate the job market and all of that, that's fine. I think I've learned that breaks are very needed. But I also learned that after you take a break, get your ass up and get back to work.
So what I hear is it's important for us to have more conversations about how to navigate just the political stuff, the disrespectful stuff. Corporate America can be mad disrespectful. I would argue it was set up to be that way. It's, if you look at the history of how we got to.
I keep hearing we have to play the game. I keep hearing that. And that burns my biscuits.
I don't want to play a game. I also want to get what I want. And so what I always advise people and mentor people, I love your thoughts, is it's not about playing somebody's game. It's about playing your game. What do you want? Right? I've also learned, to be very candid, is that I think a lot of these things that we're talking about expand past more than corporate. If you decide to fall in love and get married or partner with someone, every time they irritate you, which they will, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't just cuss them out. You will not have a partnership.
I agree.
And so I think these lessons, they expand more than just your dollar and cents, but really about how do you show up in a world as authentic as yourself, as emotionally intelligent as yourself with grace, but also letting people know, like, nuck if you buck, like, what are we doing, right? Like, I'm not the 1, 2, or 3.
Try Jesus and don't try me.
Such a great song. Bless them. Such a great song.
I've been in this season of just like, why are you trying me?
Yeah.
I think every Black woman, Black person, person of color, person in general, however you describe yourself, every person in this world has had this feeling of, what did I do to you?
Right. For you to act this way.
What is it about me that is causing you to do whatever it is that you're doing? And lately I have had to ask God, like, why? Why are you allowing this to happen? What? And because that's also the spiritual part of me says, all right, Lord, They told me not to question you. That's what they teach us. But I got questions. So why is this happening? And so I was telling you that I'm reading Job, and he asked the same thing. That's interesting, that we don't talk about the fact that Job told God that he felt like he was a target. And I was like, oh my gosh, I said the same thing. And so I think it's that it's understanding that as people, it is okay to sit down and say, this does not feel good.
Yes.
Corporate, personal, wherever you are, I am in a season that does not feel good. How do I still make impact, whether it's in my personal life or my professional life, when I don't feel good? Where do you expect that to come from? And so that whole like, in response, I've gotten well, Chenae, you got to play the game. Well, Chenae, you can't respond like that. Well, Chenae. And I'm like, and I'll sit there and I'll listen. But in the end, I'll go, none of this still feels or seems right for me. And so I've also listened to like your previous podcast with different people and how they've navigated these spaces in their lives in general. And I think the commonality is all of us at some point are frustrated as hell. At some point, all of us are frustrated.
100%. And just remember that you don't have to play the game. In my opinion, you do have to remind yourself of your end goal. That's all that I require from people. That's what I had to learn early in my career, is that it's not about playing the game, but like, what do you want? What do you want? And then and if you can answer that question, then okay, well, based on what you want, I would recommend doing A, B, or C, not D, right? But really bringing it back to self. Really bringing it back to self.
It's interesting because I teach that to my clients. Like when I'm coaching people, I'll say, when I'm coaching people for interviews, I'll say, well, you have to say this so they hear it like this. And I'll go, Chenae, take your own advice. Take your own advice.
It's so much easier to advise people than do it. Duh.
So much easier.
So reintroduce yourself to us. Who are you?
Yeah, so my name is Chenae, and I am extremely resilient. Like, I think resiliency is going to be my word for 2025. 2024 was I wanted to be a student, and I got a chance to do that in more ways than one. In 2025, I think 2024 has taught me that I'm really resilient. And so 2023, 2024, 2025. 2023, the Lord taught me how not to break. In 2024, he taught me how not to bend. So in 2025, I stand straight up. And so I'm extremely resilient because through my sleepless nights or my tears or my whys or the anxieties that I'll have, both personal and professional self, I still get back up and get back to work. And getting back to work means get up and walk your dogs, get up and feed your dogs, get up and go to the gym, get up and log on to this computer so you can change lives and make impact. I am someone who sits in the seat of privilege. That privilege is I have an internal connection to people who make decisions about people's lives and livelihoods. And I get a chance to influence a decision based on whether it be the early or later stages of the recruiting process. I get a chance to recommend people for different speaking engagements outside of work when it comes to poetry and just public speaking in general. I get a chance to connect people just by nature of people loving the vibe and the energy that I give off. And so the resiliency comes from, you are frustrated today, but that does not have to be frustration carried into tomorrow. So tomorrow, get up and get back to work.
Well, thank you so much for being here.